Sarah, you know both these worlds. You know the mainstream media world. You also know the Trump world. What is your sense of the reaction to these indictments?
I think we're seeing exactly the reaction we expected. What's a little interesting to me is, of course, in the immediate aftermath of January 6th, several of these Republican legislators were some of the first to condemn the president, to say that these actions were concerning, and they're the ones largely defending him tonight. We may see some shift in that, and there may be a good argument that condemning it politically is different than it being criminalized. You know, this will be the biggest case that the Department of Justice has probably ever had, indicting a former president for trying to overthrow a legal election in the United States. But they've bit off a lot here to chew. This is a much harder case than, for instance, what we saw down in Florida with the classified documents case.
Why? Why do you think it's so much? I mean, I made the same point in the previous segment. Why do you think it's so much harder?
In Florida, you have very clear elements that they need to prove, that there were national security documents, that the president was basically asked for them back, that he refused to do so, and then obstructed investigators when they tried to retrieve them or find them. Here, this is going to be a trial all about Donald Trump's state of mind. It doesn't matter, in a sense, that his attorney general, his White House lawyers, that all these parade of people were telling him that the election wasn't stolen. It's not even going to matter that they're going to have to relitigate every single election fraud claim and, of course, prove that they weren't true. Even if they could do both of those things, they haven't won this case until they've proven that Donald Trump himself believes that he lost the 2020 election. I think that's going to be hard.
I think it's going to be somewhere between not so hard and hard. I think it's going to be, it's certainly going to be harder than the documents case, no doubt about it. Blake, let me play you a piece of that. This is literally Fox News tonight, and this isn't even a great example of some of what we heard hour after hour after hour on Fox News, not just defending the president, right? But literally everything is about how the Justice Department is weaponized against Donald Trump without even, Sarah's doing legal analysis here. A lot of this wasn't even legal analysis. Let's listen.
The DOJ is effectively the Biden campaign headquarters at this point.
I think it's a colossal mistake for Smith to do another indictment of President Trump.
Biden's Justice Department is using obscure federal statutes to put a former president in prison for the rest of his life.
I love Jesse Waters, but he's not a legal analyst. But, they haven't...
Not obscure charges, to be clear.
They're what?
These were not obscure charges.
No.
This is charged all the time.
The only thing that's a little obscure is the civil rights charge, which is only used occasionally in the 21st century, but sort of directly related to this, which is the counting of votes. But Blake, is there anything, do you think, that could come out in the context of the investigation as we lead up to trial, the trial itself, that could end up changing any minds? Meaning, if this actually does go to trial and the evidence comes out, do you think that from what you're seeing that this could change any minds based on what does or doesn't come out? Or is everyone just so in their silos already that the details may not even matter?
Dan, it was 937 days ago, January 6th, 2021. And if I had told you, Dan, 937 days ago that we'd be talking on this evening and Donald Trump and Joe Biden would be tied 43 to 43 in a New York Times poll head to head, you would say that's the first time and last time that Berman is ever on my show, because you would have thought I was nuts.
Well, the crazy thing about but the crazy thing about why it's taken so long, and this is, I think this is pretty clear. Merrick Garland wasn't going to charge Donald Trump. And then the documents happen. And suddenly he has to appoint a special counsel to figure out, what are we going to do about the fact that he refused to turn over these documents? We got a lot of evidence that he obstructed justice. Suddenly the special counsel takes over, Sarah Isgur. And at that point, I don't know that Garland can even run the train anymore.
And don't forget, Jack Smith has a long reputation as a prosecutor he's a dog with a bone. Like, he is always going to charge. He's an incredibly aggressive prosecutor, and he charges across the political spectrum. So once Jack Smith was appointed special counsel, I think we all thought, man, January 6th now is back on the table in a way that, you're right, we all thought it was very much off the table even several months ago.
And thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.